The big game is finally in the books, and it's time for the Raiders to get their guy. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 9th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. You know, we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your consistent support, Raider Nation, and, of course, because of the incredible job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. You want to find him on Twitter, you can, at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll hear from you in segment number 3, calls, texts, great feedback. We'll close out the show hearing from you. Segment number 2, we'll update you on the Maxx Crosby situation. Is he or is he not going to be a Raider in the 2026 season? What's the latest and the greatest? You'll hear that coming up in segment number 2. Here's segment number 1, all about the big game and obviously the ramifications of it for the Silver and Black, getting their head football coach, and also what stood out to me the most about that game and how that could benefit the Raiders. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. The winter games are on. There's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So now that it's all said and done, Super Bowl 60 is a wrap. 29-13, the Seahawks get the win. Defense dominated first and foremost, right? That defense, 29-13, and it really wasn't even that close. Right, that defense was incredible for the majority of the game. It was really a snooze fest where it was nothing but field goals and sacking the quarterback when it comes to Drake May getting hit and sacked early and often, where he takes 7 sacks on Sunday. So it was one of those performances by that Seahawks defense that made you think of the Legion of Boom and thought, man, this is incredible. This is just like them, right? The dark side. It's even better than some of those guys from the Legion of Boom as far as the guys up front that were able to get to the quarterback. So that was really what led the way for Seattle to get the victory. But Kenneth Walker, how about him? Super Bowl MVP, 27 carries, 135 yards, 2 catches, 26 yards, only the 8th running back all time to win the Super Bowl MVP. This stood out to me in a major way because we know that Klint Kubiak is going to be the Raiders' next head football coach. Matter of fact, we'll hear him say that coming up in a hot second. But all I could think about watching that game, every time I saw Kenneth Walker carry the rock, all 27 times I saw him carry it, and the 2 times I saw him catch it, even the one run that he took to the house that got called back because of a holding, and it was a legit holding penalty, all I could think of is Ashton Jeanty and how much he's going to benefit from Klint Kubiak, right? This zone blocking scheme that Klint Kubiak and company are going to bring to the Raiders once he becomes officially the Raiders head coach and gets introduced and they put the staff together. As long as the Raiders have the right offensive lineman, and again, this is a big if because the Raiders have tried to run the zone blocking scheme many times and it has not come to fruition. It has not worked out very well. Klint Kubiak has to understand he needs the guys to be able to go out there and execute that zone blocking scheme. But every time I saw Kenneth Walker run the ball, I thought that could be Ashton Jeanty. Kenneth Walker is a really good running back. I don't want to take anything from him. I think Ashton Jeanty's better. Right. And given the opportunity and the patience that Kenneth Walker has, Ashton Jeanty has that patience as well. Right. There's a reason why he went for over 2,000 yards at Boise State. He showed that same type of patience and finding the hole and being able to hit it and then go. That's what it takes in this zone blocking scheme. Not to mention throughout the course of the year, even when the Seahawks weren't having great games on the ground, they still stuck to it. Right. And look, they averaged 5 yards a carry. He averaged 5 yards a carry on Sunday, which is great. He had a couple big runs. But there was times throughout the season where they didn't have great games as far as, averaging per carry, but they stuck to it. So the games that we always came away scratching our head thinking, what in the world? How come Ashton Jeanty only had 9 carries? How come he only had 7 carries? How come he only had 11 carries? Like, you got to give the guy the rock. And I know for a fact that he wants the rock. We've talked about it in the locker room many times, right? Every time he had a game where he had 24 carries or 25 carries, there's always be a reporter that says, that's your career high in carries. How are you feeling? And I always looked at him. He looked at me, and he feels fine, right? We talk about it. He feels fine. He's a volume back. He's a guy that wants to carry the rock a lot. Now, with that being said, Seattle also had a really good 1-2 punch with Charbonnet as well with Walker. And obviously he tore his ACL, so he wasn't able to play. It would be great to see the Raiders pick up another running back that they feel comfortable with, sharing the load with Jeanty, obviously him being the guy that carries the ball the most. But really excited about what Ashton Jeanty, the action he's going to get. Obviously, again, the offensive line has to be put in place. You have to have the right guys to be able to execute that zone blocking scheme. But if they do, and I do believe whatever the contract ends up being for Klint Kubiak, he's going to have the time to get this thing turned around, built in the right way, and have the right guys. Don't try to force guys that don't really necessarily run a certain scheme. Don't force them to try to do it, right? Just get the guys that you feel like fit that mold. So I think Colton Miller is one of those guys. I think there's a place on the offensive line for Jackson Powers-Johnson, wherever they want to put him, either center or guard. Just don't play around with them. Don't toy around with them. Just put them where they want them to put them, all right, and stick them there. I think that you could put DJ Glaze at one of the guard spots and probably be good, but you're going to have questions, right? You're going to have questions on, who's going to be the center, who's going to be the right tackle, who's going to be the other guard position. That's up to the Raiders to figure that out. And I trust that they, are the smart guys and they can figure it out. But I'm telling you, as I watched that Seahawks offense operate, it wasn't the fantastic play of Sam Darnold. And that wasn't bad. He only got sacked one time. He made some really good decisions. He's now a Super Bowl champion, which is incredible because he looked like a bust at one point. But, he stuck with it and had a coach that believed in him, a couple coaching staffs that believed in him. Now he's a Super Bowl champ. But and the defense was incredible. But really, every time Kenneth Walker touched the ball, all I could see is number 2. All I could see is Ashton Jeanty. I mentioned Klint Kubiak and that he basically did confirm that he's going to be the Raiders' next head football coach. And that's when he talked to NFL Network, Stacey Dales, and she asked him about the job.
What does the future look like as a head coach in this league for you? Because it's going to happen.
Yeah. That's up to God, and we're gonna enjoy tonight. Yeah.
So no answers on the network.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, you guys know I'm going to Las Vegas, so I'm fired up about it. But tonight, one more for one more night. Hell yeah, I'm going. Of course I'm going. Yeah.
Just confirmed it right here.
So there you go. Hell yeah, I'm going. Right. So if you needed any more confirmation, so anyone that was concerned about Klint Kubiak, is he or is he not going to be the head football coach? Is there something that could happen that can trip up this process? No. He confirmed it. He's going to be the Raiders' next head football coach. I know for a fact the press conference is supposed to be on Tuesday. We're all supposed to be there doing our radio shows. They're going to kind of run him through a car wash style like ESPN used to do all the time. When they had a guest there at Bristol at the campus, and they'd run them to radio, then they'd run them to TV, then they'd run them to digital, then they'd run them, it's just that they used to call that the car wash. Well, that's what the Raiders are going to attempt to do on Tuesday at the facility. So unless something gets tripped up, and things can, right? I mean, the logistics could happen. Something could get tripped up and maybe it gets pushed to Wednesday. But the way I've been told, it's supposed to take place on Tuesday at the Raiders facility, the press conference for one Klint Kubiak. I'm sure it's going to get announced today that he's the head football coach, but like I said, the official press conference won't be until Tuesday. So, big ups to the Seahawks. Big ups to Klint Kubiak. Big ups to the Raiders because they're going to get their guy. They have a whole lot of money when it comes to salary cap space. They got 10 draft picks, and they've got Fernando Mendoza most likely coming in as a pick number 1, their new franchise quarterback. Whether he starts or he doesn't start, he's going to be the guy as far as I'm concerned. He was on Radio Row on Friday. I tried to catch up with him, but I kept getting run off. It's funny. There was a time when Will Compton and Taylor Lewan busting with the boys, they saw him. It was behind the ESPN, the big background and the big setup, the stage that ESPN had on at the Moscone Center on Radio Row, and he was walking behind it. So I was behind him in hot pursuit, and then he started talking to Will Compton and Taylor Lewan. And if you actually see the video on the Bussin' with Boys social media, you can see some dude walking in the background. Yeah, that's me. That was me trying to catch up to him. He walked into the bathroom, and I felt kind of weird. I was like, oh, man, I can't follow him into the bathroom. So then I literally waited outside the bathroom, and his handler was just not letting me have it, not letting me get a couple minutes with him, which is fine. Not a big deal. He didn't have to. I didn't have any kind of interview lined up with him, but I was doing everything I could to try to get a couple words from him. But don't worry, we'll get him in Indianapolis at the scouting combine, and that's coming up in a couple short weeks. So we'll be looking forward to that, and of course we'll hear from Fernando Mendoza then. But next thing we got to talk about is Maxx Crosby, because this is a conversation that I feel like is going to continue to linger around until something comes to a resolution one way or the other. We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle in the sports you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to all the action. Of course, the drama of curling matches start slow, somehow get intense, and get fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Every niche event becomes must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition, and FanDuel will keep the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. Right now, the Winter Games are on. There's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into a conversation that I feel like, well, first of all, pops up every single offseason and even throughout the course of the year. And I don't feel like this one's going away anytime soon. This is the Maxx Crosby situation. It got started on Radio Row last week when I was at the Moscone Center there in San Francisco. Jay Glazer from Fox went on, what show was he? Oh, he was on Yahoo Sports with our guy Jason Fitz and was talking about Maxx Crosby. And, then he walked it back and said, I said that, not Max. And Diana Rossini, who I actually caught up with on Friday on Radio Row, she said, that Max has talked about wanting to play for Mike Vrabel. Then when she talked to me, she was talking about, well, that kind of, was taken out of context. It was really kind of an older situation. Matter of fact, I'll just let you hear it for yourself. This is what Diana Rossini had to say to me on Friday on Radio Row when I asked her about the Maxx Crosby situation.
Yeah, I think it got a little out of control.
Okay.
I was on a Boston show talking about leadership and guys that the New England Patriots would be interested in the offseason. That would make sense, right? Guys like A.J. Brown and Maxx Crosby. And I have had conversations in the past with Max about Mike Vrabel as a head coach and what he's like. Mm-hmm. And they have a chemistry. They have a friendship and a relationship outside of football.
Right.
And in terms of, like, if you had to build the perfect coach, he's close to being that.
Right.
And somehow that got taken as, like, he's calling the Patriots, like, I want to play for you. And the reason why everyone's freaking out is because everyone knows what's going on right now, which is Max isn't happy.
Right.
I think that's pretty clear that the way this season went and how the ending of it went down with him being pretty frustrated with how they handled him and handled his injury and handled his playing. Look, it's been 7 years.
Right.
6 coaches, including an interim.
Yeah.
At what point is this organization going to say, yes, you're important, but you deserve to be part of something for yourself, for what you've given us.
Right.
You need to go work on your legacy. Be here Super Bowl weekend with the team because it's going to be a minute before we can get there.
Right.
And I think that's what we're all sensing and feeling and all the conversations we're having around football. Everyone's just wondering, are the Raiders really going to be willing to have a conversation with Max and say, yeah, you can go find somebody to play with.
So that was Diana Rossini. She kind of walked it back a little bit as well, talking about an older conversation, and it kind of just took off. Now, with that being said, there's still a lot that are implying that, something's going to happen with Max and that he doesn't want to be with the Raiders. Well, on Friday, he went on a major media tour. Like, he was on the Colin Cowherd show, Jim Rome show. He was on Golic and Golic on FanDuel. He was on many different national shows to talk about this situation. And so this is what happened. This is what it sounded like on Golic and Golic on Friday when he was asked by a junior if, what the situation was with the Raiders after they shut him down for the last 2 games of the 2025 season. Has that changed the way he feels about this Raiders organization? Check it out.
I talked about this with Colin and a couple other people as well. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. For me, everyone knows what I'm about. Everyone knows what I am and my actions, and the first one in, last one out, lead from the front, lead by example all year round in the building every day. That's what I am. So then, when things aren't necessarily going our way, now it's like I'm being, I'm told what I have to do when it's not typically, I don't even know how to explain it without saying something I probably shouldn't say. So I'm gonna just keep it simple. Everyone, nobody really knows what's going on and what happened. But I'm gonna just leave it at that. Whenever that time comes, I might. But I'm choosing peace over violence, and I'm just content on doing what I need to do on a daily basis. But yeah, it's just about trust, and it's about action. For me, I people could say one thing but do the other thing. For me, You know what my actions are. You know what I'm about. I live by that code and those principles, and I like truth and honesty, and that's all that matters to me. You know what I mean? If you want to tell me something that, if you want to tell me the truth and I don't want to hear it, I might still say F you, but at least I'll respect the fact that you're being straight up with me. That's just how I am and how I was raised, and that's how I feel. So yeah, that's just, part of it, but I'm doing great. Overall, mentally, I really am great. I love my teammates. My teammates are the ones that voted me captain. I take a lot of pride in that. There's a lot of incredible people. I'll be, like I said, this Raiders shield is tatted on my body. I love the Raiders. You know what I mean? I embody everything that is. And Mark Davis is incredible. Me and him have had an incredible relationship since he's been in the league. Not many people can say that about, player to owner, but me and him are incredibly close. So yeah, I have great relationships, throughout this building for the most part.
So he gave you a good 2+ minute answer and talked about, the organization, loving the team, the owner, the great relationships throughout the building for the most part, right? Did not say that he was going to be there long term. Did not say that he wasn't going to ask for a trade. Just let it be known how much, he loves the organization. He's got it tatted on his body, so on and so forth. Now, look, that interview, as many others, were conducted at the Raiders facility. He was in Raiders gear, and so it feels like he's very much open to still being with the Raiders. And look, bottom line, the Raiders don't have to do anything. He's under contract. So he could be as upset as he wants to, and they can say, yeah, tough break, right? It doesn't matter. You're going to play with the Raiders. You're under contract. Adam Schefter had this to say about the Maxx Crosby situation. This was before the Super Bowl on Sunday, and talked about what it would take to get Maxx out of Las Vegas.
Maxx Crosby faces an uncertain future with the Raiders. Despite the speculation that he'll be traded, the Raiders have been adamant that they don't want to trade him. And if they did, they would be looking for a Micah Parsons package of their own. A lot of draft picks. We'll see how this one unfolds. They're still going to want to try to convince Crosby to stay in Las Vegas. Don't know if that's possible, but the Raiders are not all that interested in moving off of him right now, despite how interested he is in being traded.
So there's Adam Schefter. The Raiders don't want to move him unless it's for a Micah Parsons type trade. And if you're wondering, well, what was the Micah Parsons trade? That's when Micah Parsons went from the Cowboys to the Packers in exchange for a 2026 and 2027 first-round pick and 3-time Pro Bowler Kenny Clark. So 2 first-round picks and a player. I don't know if Maxx Crosby gets that. I'm just being real. I don't know if a team gives up all that for Maxx Crosby. If they do, then I think that the Raiders definitely consider it. And, I think that there's definitely some, and I've said it many times, where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think any of these conversations for Maxx has come out of nowhere. I don't think that these guys just made it up. I know some people say, oh, Rossini's wrong, she's tripping. And, oh, Jay Glazer's just making some stuff up. No, I just think that, there's a time and a place. I think that there's, things that are put out there for a reason. You get a reaction, and then you go from there. I would not be shocked to see Maxx somewhere else next year. I also wouldn't be shocked to see him playing with the Raiders, right? I just wouldn't. I think what's going to happen at the end of the day, he's going to sit down with Klint Kubiak. They're going to decide who's going to be the defensive coordinator of the staff. Maxx is not going to do this, but they're going to all decide who the staff's going to be. They're going to put together the plan, and they're going to sell it to Maxx Crosby. This is what we're doing. This is what the timeline looks like. This is how we think we can help you win. And if he likes it, cool, he'll roll with it. And if he doesn't, I think he'll say, hey, I like it. It sounds good for you guys, but it doesn't sound good for me. Can I be moved? And then it's the Raiders' responsibility to get the most for them, right? If they're going to move him, and I know they want to do right by him and send him somewhere he wants to go, but they have to do the best that they can for the organization. They've got to be able to get the most out of him. So again, if they want to move him, as you heard Adam Schefter say, for something Micah Parsons like 2026, 2027 first-round picks and a 3-time Pro Bowler and Kenny Clark. So now you start looking around the league and say, okay, what team could offer up a couple first-round picks and a player, a really good player? Because Kenny Clark is a really good player, right? How do you go ahead and make that work? Well, that's going to be up to John Spytek. That's going to be up to the organization, if in fact it does come to that. But I think before any of that comes to fruition, they're going to have a chance to all sit down with Klint Kubiak after he officially gets announced as the head coach of the Raiders. And I would not be surprised at all if Maxx Crosby is actually at his press conference, just like he was at Pete Carroll's press conference a year ago when they hired when they hired Pete Carroll and also John Spytek. And then again, maybe he won't, because maybe he'll just want to lay low and continue to do what he's been doing when it comes to just rehabbing, getting ready, right? I mean, he had the meniscus tear, so he's got a lot of rehab that he's still got to do. He said he should be ready by training camp or mandatory mini camp. So when it matters for him to be there, he should be ready to go. So we'll see. It feels like it's going to be one of those sagas that we're going to talk about quite a bit, especially leading up to the draft, right? Because he's not going to be any more valuable than what he'll be leading up to the draft, right? If something's going to happen, it should, in theory, happen before the draft coming up in late April. But that's just the latest update when it comes to Maxx Crosby. We'll see what twist and turn it takes next. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor we have here on the show, and that's Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't that right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. So if you're looking to hire someone, go straight to Indeed. Be very specific about what you need, real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost to your post to the people who are the best match for your role and then make a real difference. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Indeed. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way. Do it with Indeed. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Again, we'd like to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. Up first, got a text from DJ Raider in Arizona. It says, Q, DJ Raider from Arizona. First, I've been a dedicated listener for a little over a year now, and I have to throw props your way. You're a pros, brother. Your dedication and effort is consistent and relentless day in and day out. You show up and always come prepared. You truly set the example. Second, I really hated seeing Spillane, Hollins, and Chason on the field during the Super Bowl. I wish them luck always, but how did the Raiders front office get it so wrong? And last, I agree we need to put a full court press on signing Linderbaum. If that happens, I think we could have a very productive offensive line with Miller at left tackle, JPJ at left guard, Linderbaum at center, Glaze at right guard, and either Rodgers or Grant at right tackle. Curious your thoughts again. Thanks for all that you and Ari do. Keep doing your thing. Locked On for life. Just win, baby. That's DJ Raider in Arizona. First of all, thank you for the kind words. Really do appreciate that. And like I said, I'm only as good as the guy behind the scenes, which is Ari. He does a fantastic job, so we definitely appreciate him. But I do appreciate that you respect the show and the fact that we're going to show up each and every day and be here for you. As far as the offensive line goes, it's funny. Like, I like Linderbaum a lot. I think that he's one of the best centers that are going to be out there available. But what the Raiders have to do, Klint Kubiak and company, once they get their staff together, they have to decide who fits their scheme best, who fits that zone blocking scheme. So it might not be a big name that we know. It just might be a guy that does really well with how they run it. Because if you watch that Super Bowl on Sunday and you watch the way that Kenneth Walker carved up the Patriots on the ground, right? Now, obviously, that's a lot of skill set from him, but it's also, the way that the offensive line was blocking, and they've got some quality talent up there. If the Raiders go out there and get guys that fit the scheme, that know how to execute the scheme, and have an offensive line coach that knows how to coach it up and teach it, then that's a step in the right direction. They don't necessarily have to be the highest paid guys, right? It's funny, and I mentioned this last week. Steve Weiss from the NFL Network told me, Q, goons and gangsters. That's what the Raiders need on the offensive line. Goons on the offensive line, gangsters on the defensive line, right? So whoever the goons are that can block it up so Ashton Genty and others can operate, and Fernando Mendoza, if and when he gets out there, could play the quarterback position that opens up Brock Bowers and everybody else. So, I think that the future is bright, but they got to get the right players in place. And I'm with you with Miller and JPJ, like the left tackle, left guard. I'm good with that. Even DJ Glaze could be there at the left guard position. Maybe you put JPJ at the right guard position. There's a role for JPJ on the team. They just have to figure out what it's going to be and stick with it. Don't toy around with them like they did last year. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Really good to hear from you. Up next, got a call from Cheese Grater Raider. He's calling to talk about the Maxx Crosby situation. It feels like the Raiders as an organization, what they need to do. Here's Cheese Grater Raider.
Hey, what's up, Q? What's up, Raider Nation? It's Cheese Grater Raider. And basically, I want to talk about the Maxx Crosby situation. And I understand we want to do right by Max. I get all of that. So if he wants to leave, we should trade him away. But at the same time, we need to look out. We need to start to look out for ourselves, because this is an organization that has been down in the dirt or down in the dumps, I think it's the saying, for the last 20, almost 25 years. So we need to do what's right by the Shield, what's right by Raider Nation. If we're going to trade Max, I think it's got to be to a team that's going to give us at least a top 15 pick in this year's draft. I don't want to be trading him to the Patriots and get a 31st, 32nd pick in the draft. That doesn't do anything for us. Sorry, Max. You know you want to go to a winning organization. Maybe we can get him get him in an organization where it's like, okay, they got a chance, but things just been playing like the Bengals or something. I don't know what pick they are, but I know they're probably somewhere in the middle. But like, send them out over to the Bengals. They got a good offense. They need some help on defense. He'll make them better, and they just had a bad season, basically, is what you could chalk that up to. Hell, maybe even Giants or the Panthers, even the Panthers, but the Panthers were a playoff team, so that would be like 21st pick or something like that at least. But that's my 2 cents. If we're gonna trade Max, let's do it right by the Shield. Let's get a pick that's gonna benefit us. That's all I got, man. I want to hear your thoughts on that, though, Q. All right, man. Go Raiders.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And, yeah, I think you're spot on when it comes to getting the most in return, right? If he's moving, that's a big if. That's going back to what Shefty said, the sound that you heard in segment number 2, referring to the Micah Parsons trade haul. They have to absolutely do right for the team. It's fine to do right by Maxx Crosby, right? Moving him it will be doing him a favor, because they easily could say, no, we're not moving you. We just gave you a contract extension last year. You don't have to be happy about it, but you're going to go out there and ball. And he's not going to miss paychecks. He's not going to miss game checks. Trust and believe that, right? Players will say all this stuff in February. They'll say stuff in March. They'll say stuff in April. But when push comes to shove, when it's time to get out there and actually start playing, they're going to be out there. And Maxx Crosby, he's got too much of a strong work ethic. You think he's going to sit out and not report to training camp and all that? He's not. He can't help himself, right? He wants to be out there all the time. That's just kind of how he's built. So, if they do move him, which, again, is a big if, they do have to, like you said, get the most in return. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Rob from Stockton. He says, Mr. Q, Ari, how's everything going? Had a thought about Max. If he really wants out of Las Vegas, then trade him to the Jets for their number 2 and number 16 pick in this year's draft, plus whatever else we can get. Grab Mendoza at number 1, Ruben Bain from Miami at number 2, and whoever they like at 16. I say Elijah Surratt, but I don't think he's worth a round 1 pick, or use 16 to trade back. If Max is really giving up on the team, then we don't want to get into a hostage situation here. Let him go, but not to where he wants, but to whoever is going to pay a premium. Toss Geno into the trade if needed to close. Not saying that Bain is Crosby, but he'll fill the hole that will be left. Plus, do it longer and cheaper at this point. Good idea, or am I tripping? That's Raider Rob from Stockton. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. I don't think that they would get the Jets, first 2 picks for Maxx Crosby. I don't see that. The Jets need to use their picks to try to get a quarterback. That's, if anything, the Jets, like, everyone's trying to get the Jets picks because they have a bunch of them, but they need a quarterback so bad. Yeah, they could use Maxx Crosby, but I just don't see the Jets as a team that says, yeah, we're one Maxx Crosby away. We're going to give up all this capital for Maxx Crosby. I think if a team makes a trade for Max, it's going to be a team like the Cowboys, who don't really have any draft capital to give up after the Micah Parsons trade. A team like the Bills, a team like the Bears, a team like the Lions, teams like that feel like that they're right there, and Max could make a big difference. That's, to me, that's just, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a team that he can help put them over the top, help them win. The Jets aren't winning. And Maxx Crosby would hate being a Jet, right? I mean, if he's miserable with the Raiders because they're in a rebuild, what do you think the Jets are? So I don't see that being a scenario, and I don't see them making that move because they know that they're not one Maxx Crosby away. And, he's already 29 years old. So if you're going to trade for him, you got to trade for him and know that you're trying to maximize his talent right now. So thanks so much for that text. I appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from Jacob in North Carolina. He's called to talk about the former Raiders playing in the Super Bowl, and he does not like it, just like our guy DJ Raider didn't like it either. But here he is, Jacob in North Carolina.
Hey Q, hey Ari, hey Raider Nation. Q, Ari, I'm pretty sure we're all aware of all the Raiders, the former Raiders playing in this Super Bowl. I'm glad that we got John Spytek on the team because he said that he's going to mitigate this problem, and I really hope that he's a man of his word because, darn it, like, I do not understand why the Raiders are not good enough to be in the Super Bowl because I remember opening day and we're way better than this team in the Super Bowl representing the AFC. But, like, this whole entire Super Bowl, man, oh my gosh, it seems like it was a soccer match for 3 quarters. And I gotta say, like, if there's a metaphor for this, it's like, man, it's like 10 Jamaicans slap boxing and then the elevator. This game stunk. Like, what the heck? This was a booty water game. Whew.
Yeah, Jacob, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, John Spytek, the GM, mentioned letting good talent out of the building. Chason, Spillane, Hollins, Hooper, all former Raiders, all Patriots as well, which is not a big surprise. Josh McDaniels is there, and he's familiar with all those guys, right? So he brought them all or made sure that they all were looked at by the Patriots and signed when they signed to spend all that money in free agency. And, you know, when you look at it now, you wish that Chason had stuck with the Raiders and maybe Malcolm Kuntz was the guy that the Patriots picked up, right? That would have been ideal, but we know that Malcolm Kuntz was always in Josh McDaniels' doghouse, and Kuntz didn't get opened up until McDaniels got fired and AP took over. But, man, Chason played his tail off, right? He played really well when the Raiders picked him up when the Jaguars let him go, and then the Raiders just didn't bring him back. I would have loved to see him bring him back. He was a dude that played his tail off for the Patriots this year. Spillane obviously got big money. Chason's going to be a free agent again, so maybe he's a guy that they look at. He's going to get big money after the year he had, and others, right? Mac Hollins was always a guy that I liked, appreciated his time with the Raiders. I wish him well all the time. Hooper, he was a guy that, Josh McDaniels brought over as well from his familiarity with him. So, the Raiders need to get out of the habit of letting really good talent out of the building, which also goes all the way back full circle to Maxx Crosby because he's the really good talent in the building. So that's going to do it for today's show. Jacob, thanks for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a text from Assassin's Ghost we'll get to tomorrow. Ohio Raider 419. Again, the press conference for Klint Kubiak is scheduled for Tuesday as of right now. Could things change? Sure. But that's what it's supposed to be. I don't know what time, but obviously I'll update it as soon as I find that out. We'll actually do the Raiders squad show on Tuesday. We're not going to do it today. We thought about it and then, just decided that we'd want to hear a little bit more official about Klint Kubiak and maybe even find out what time the press is going to be at so we can kind of plan accordingly. So the Raiders squad show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself will come to you Tuesday and Thursday this week. So thanks so much for all the feedback. Thanks so much for tuning into the show as you normally do. And like I said, always love hearing from you. So we'll have more calls and texts tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes. Maybe the Maxx Crosby situation we'll have to update again. Who knows? But, of course, we'll bring you everything that we can each and every day here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.